Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Evil. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I like where we start out because it kind of gave me a little bit of a reminder because, like, at the beginning we see, like, Ben and Kristen at the hospital. I'm like, why are they in the hospital? I was like, is this a case or something? I was like, right. Because it's been a while. I was like, right, David got super messed up last episode. He got attacked. I was like, right. I was like, holy crap. And now it's like everyone's checking in on him and everything. And obviously Kristen calls him Mira because it's like the detective working on David's case. It's like, he's an idiot. Let me bring in someone more capable to look after this case. So obviously it turns into this very interesting thing of like, all right, finding out who attacked him. Because obviously Kristen puts Leland at the top of the list because he's a number one suspect in everything. But it turns out what's really interesting is like, the last word David said, when he was kind of in and out of consciousness was Ghana. And it's like, what's that all about? And it's like, oh yeah, apparently it's an old case that David and Ben had worked on. And it's like, yeah, let's go ask Judy. And it's like, oh, who's Judy? It's like, oh, she's the you before you. And you see this look on Kristen's face like, wait, what? Because I think for her, it's like, wait, I thought I was the first one. Wait, you guys have had, psychiatrists work with you before me? It's like, oh, I think for her, it kind of made her feel like, no, I was part of the gang. This is something special. It's like, oh, it doesn't come up, but I like to see if that comes up later on in the episodes, whether or not that becomes a thing of like, oh, I thought it was going to be a good, it makes her feel like, oh, their thing isn't as special because there was someone else before her. Because also it comes into, the question becomes like, well, why did Judy leave? Why? Because like the thing is they had never brought it up before, but it's probably like, well, we never brought it up because you never asked. So, because like I said, Kristen probably just assumed she was the first one. It was never an issue in the episode, but I think that's going to be an interesting element to kind of come up later on, especially because they meet Judy. Side note, the actress who plays her looks so familiar. There was a CBS show, it was only 13 episodes, called American Gothic. Isn't that the actress who played the younger sister? Because I think that actress also popped up in Jane the Virgin. I never saw it, but I saw a preview of an episode. It's like, oh, isn't that the actress from American Gothic? In American Gothic, she played like the youngest sister. The reason why I'm also bringing it up is just because obviously it was CBS, and this is also on CBS, at least here in the States. So I think it's the same actress. I have to do further research, but my immediate thing, like, that looks like her, but I could be wrong. But it was interesting because Judy kind of has this like interesting, like, obviously she has cameras, and it doesn't seem like it's just for her doorbell. It seems like even inside of her house trying to see like, okay, who it is. So I'm wondering, is it a byproduct of working with them? But it was interesting. It's like, because like a moment she met Kristen, it's like, oh yeah, you look like David's type, which Ben was immediately like, all right, Judy, you're being a bitch. Because almost trying to make it seem like, oh, that David has a type. So it makes you wonder, was there something between her and David before, but did David put his position as a priest coming first? I mean, to be fair, like, the situation's a little different with Kristen, even though there's something there. She's married, he's trying to become a priest, so there's that whole situation. But whatever the case may be, she does care about David a lot, because she did like, oh my god, like, David, what happened, because they go to her because like obviously she knows the case well enough. And what was interesting is like, oh, let's go, and Ben was like, whoa, no, you just give me and Kristen the address, we can go. It's like, and she's like, no, I got to be involved in this. I'm like, that's interesting. And what is that going to turn into going forward? Is she going to be like saying like, oh, working with you guys again made me decide I want to be back a part of this again? So, because the way Ben was almost like, well, what? Because he was even like, wait, it's Friday. You don't leave your house on a Friday. Like I said, I don't know if it's a byproduct of that's just kind of how she was already, or whether that was a byproduct of working with them. But it just seemed like Ben was kind of like, he was kind of shocked, because it's like, wait, it's almost like you're going out of your way of kind of going against what your routine typically is, just because David's involved, so maybe there's something there. Because Judy might have come into the picture like after the whole Julia situation, so it might be the thing of like some sparks had flown there, but nothing ever happened, and maybe Judy maybe that's part of the reason why she stopped working with them. Maybe there's something else. Part of me kind of started, because of the way Ben was right, I was like, is she like crazy or something? Is that why Ben was like, oh, no, me and Kristen got this? But we'll see. I mean, you never get that feeling the rest of the episode. That's why I'm like, But what I thought was really fascinating is obviously they're looking into this Ghana dude, and it's like, oh, they meet his roommate who had called them, because it seemed like, oh, maybe because his roommate at the time believed that maybe he was possessed, but obviously he's acting crazy and stuff like that. Obviously him attacking David, which I mean, it was like, oh, he must be like, because at the time I was like, oh, we knew that previously Leland was looking for more incels to replace Sebastian, considering how that whole debacle went down, and was like, oh no, I thought that's who was attacking. Whatever the case may be, it's like, I doubt it's per chance that he just happened to find where David was in attachments, probably because Leland gave him the lowdown on probably where to go, kind of pointed him in the right. Leland's very manipulative like that, so I wouldn't be too surprised. That's why I wasn't too surprised when Kristen was like, "Oh yeah, put Leland at the top of the list," so it made sense. But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, like. He took my technology, like I had this game idea, but he had this creepy avatar, and it was like her name was Rose, and it was like Rose 390. I was like, no way! It's like, this is all, dude, plot lines connecting. I was like, so Ghana was behind that? And then even Kristen and Ben are looking at each other like, wait, do you still have that game? It's just like, yeah, locked up. It's like, holy crap. So that whole, like, because at first it's like, okay, it made you wonder, like, is that some kind of demon possession? Like, you thought it was like maybe a demon possessing the technology. Now we realize there was a crazy person behind it. Granted, that crazy person, said person might be possessed in some shape or form, or maybe he was just someone that's very mentally unstable that maybe Leland whispered in his ear, oh, do this, do that. Because like I said, Leland pulls the strings behind a lot of stuff, especially stuff that happens in Kristen and David's lives, even stuff in Ben's life. But, that's why I'm like, I don't know, that's definitely going to be interesting. I'm like, dude, I even love, like, Ben kind of customizing himself, because obviously he wants them to seem like, because Rose is 390 is more likely to pop up if they think it's a little kid that they're messing with, And I love that he's trying to, like, so which one of your daughter's names shall I use? And I love Kristen be like, no, you're not going to use my daughter's names. And so it's like, all right, let's stick with Heather, which part of me was wondering, is that just because of Heather, just because, the movie Heather's? Probably not. Probably reading too much into that. But I just immediately thought that. So I just thought that was just a neat element. And because of that, they were able to track him down, and he is arrested at the end of the episode. I was like, dude, but I don't think we're done with that. There's still got to be more to it, because it's like, because like a lot of the episodes haven't, like, obviously there's been connections brought up, but this was like a big connection, because it made it seem like maybe that was just technology based, maybe like, oh, the technology was wild, but it's like, no, it turns out, but God, he's such a raving lunatic. I wouldn't have expected him to be so tech savvy, is my point, which, hey, that to me, look, who am I to judge? It's like you're judging a book by its cover. It's a super crazy cover, so I wouldn't think him to be technologically savvy, so that's why I feel like there's definitely something else at play here. Like I said, we'll see, but that's just one side of this wild-ass episode. The other side is David tripping balls the entire episode because he doesn't know what's real and what isn't. I'm still not even sure if that Father Douglas he met was real. There was a note from him and everything, so it's like, maybe he was, but then it was like the whole thing with Harlan. It's like, oh, like they were making jokes about his, he's got like an itch on his right leg or toes or something, pull back, and like both his legs have been amputated. It's like, wait, what? And then David starts tripping because Harlan is like, the fact of the matter is, you want to be quiet. Nurse plague. Don't call her if you're in need of something, because like she kills the patient. She cuts off their tags and keeps them as a trophy. And it's like, wait, what? And he's like, when she's around, pretend to be asleep, but then she's helping out David. It seems like she's nice. I'm like, maybe Harlan's just quite crazy. But then like she injects David with something, kind of passes out for a little. He wakes up. She's got blood on her shoes, and it's like, wait, what? And then she makes that joke about oh, you said 9. Look, I'm lucky you're not German. I otherwise think you were saying no. And I'm like, dude, this is weird. This is crazy. Because he was like, because Harlan was like, yo, you want to be careful because she's going to write on your chart that your pain is, like she messes with like the board saying incorrect information and stuff. And it's like, well, what's going on here? But then like David passes out and he sees Grace, and Grace is like telling him like, because I guess because he's kind of losing faith more recently, and it's just like, God is always with you. He's there for you. The fact of the matter is, remember Matthew 13:25 and 25 in particular. And it was interesting because it's like, because I think it's so interesting that one person you would see would be Grace. Because we don't know what Grace's status is currently. We know she got kicked out of the country, but like beyond that, we don't 100% know. She brings up the triangle again, which I'm like, okay, we're going to circle back to that, figure out more about that, because even David was like, I don't understand. And then at one point you see like a creature come up behind her and attack her, which we later on see those same creatures. So is there was there kind of something of like Grace psychically connecting with David, or was that his subconscious picking someone that is like, oh, you'll listen to Grace because she's a prophet, so you listen to her? So was that his subconscious? Was that real? That's the thing, because even when he wakes up and he's talking to Harlan, he's like, you still got both your legs, and it's like, wait, what? I even love that line from Grace later on. It comes up later on where he was like, how do I know? It's like, is this real? And she's like, no, this is a dream. But she's like, not all things true are real, and not all dreams are false. I'm like, that I like that. That stuck out to me. I love that quote. But that plays such a big role because even David's like, I can't trust anything. And Harlan's like, no, you can't, because that stuff that they're pumping you is like, that's not the real. What you really want is to get some oral medicine, because obviously the drip can be tampered with. Your pills, not as likely, because those, those are very like, oh, these are in pill form, so you're less likely to be overdosed, at least in that regard. Like, you would have to like be taking multiple pills, like, whereas their drip could be messed with. Obviously, Nurse Plague is messing with it. And it's like the whole thing of like, David tries to take his IV out, but lo and behold, who shows up? Nurse Plague. She's like, oh, you're gonna hurt yourself, you're infected because you keep taking out your IV. And she stuck it in him. He's like, ow. And she's like, oh, come on, David, like, I'll make sure this doesn't come out again and everything. It's like, it definitely, I kind of got Misery vibes from this. I was like, yo, which, I mean, I guess when you look at this in the grand scheme of things, this is definitely very like Stephen King like in general, but like in particular this episode, I definitely got some Misery vibes and stuff like that. Good old Linda. Scary, scary Linda. So that was kind of a neat element to this episode, especially because Grace, because like during his dream, he had saw Father Douglas and then these creatures, but they were like, oh, we're not going to take him yet. We need to work on him a little bit more. His skin's too tough, but they're taking Harlan and stuff. So it's that thing of like, what's real and what isn't. And it's like you're drifting in between. Well, because obviously at that time we knew it was a dream, but it was like a manifestation. Hell, there was even the one where like he had dreamt that she had suffocated him, but then he woke up and Harlan was alive. But when he wakes up later, Harlan's not beside him, so it's like, okay. So like I said, it's that boundary between like what's real and what's not. And I like that, because part of you is warned. Like, there is a part of me that was like, oh, there's craziness that's going down. Are we going to find out that David was actually crazy the entire time and none of this was really happening? That I was almost halfway thinking like maybe by the end of the episode, he wouldn't be able to know what really went down. I was like, wait, was this real? Was it not? I thought we have something like that, but no. I thought that was such an interesting element and everything. And obviously he takes that Bible page out, he rips it out and kind of keeps it so he can remind himself, okay, it's there, to kind of remind him like, okay, we keep that, Matthew 13 in mind. I love it that he, Kristen and them wanted to see him, but the nurse was like, oh no, you can't see him yet. But then Mira was there. It's like, oh, we're going to question him now. It's like, okay, fine. And then I love that scene of their questioning him, but David's out of it. But in his mind, he thinks he's clear. He's talking clearly. But to them, it's like, oh, like it's not reflective. I was like, oh, Linda's scary. I was like, no, she got David beforehand, because we saw it. But still, it's like in his mind, he's like, yes, that's God, and you need to be careful. But on the outside, he's like, I was like, oh, man. I was like, and he can't warn them about, it's like, oh man, that lady is pure evil. Then, Grace had told him, like, wait till noon when you hear that, Nurse Plague is gone. That way you get a new nurse, because a ship will come over. And so David does wait. He pulls it out, and another Nurse Piper. It's like, oh, please. It's like, oh, she's sweet. It's like, oh, don't worry. We'll get you pills. Oh, looks like you might, we'll check you, see if you might have an infection and stuff. Don't worry, I got you. And it's like, oh, man, it's like everything worked out. Lo and behold, who walks in? Nurse Plague. He didn't wait to make sure he didn't hear the squeaky shoes. It could just be the situation she was wearing different shoes, or he was thinking, okay, it's noon, but I think he forgot the rest of, Grace's advice. But it could, like I said, it could just be she wasn't wearing it. And the moment she sees him, like, oh, you slick bastard. You think you're so slick. I'm not done with your ass. And it's like, Piper, why don't you go rest? I'll take care of this. And Piper's like, oh, no, go ahead. I was like, I was like, and you see David just kind of like slip back and just almost like accept, because it's like, damn it, I was so close. Especially because it's like, no, hand me my phone and everything, but he doesn't get his phone. And he tries to ask Harlan, but it's not Harlan anymore. It's a new patient. So he's like knocking the pillows on the floor to kind of stop his fall, and the ladies come around and hey, someone's. He's like, no. He's like, please don't. He gets over to the phone. His IV drops, and it's like, oh, he dials Kristen. It's like, oh, he's like, Kristen, help, but oh, Nurse Plague. It's like, no. It's like every time, and she took his phone. I'm like, how are you going to explain that later on that she just took his phone? It never came up, but it's like, oh, that's a little messed up that you took his phone. Like, But lo and behold, luckily Kristen got a feeling. She's like, something's not right. And then she goes to see David. She's like, David, what's wrong? Because obviously it's like every time they show up, it's kind of like nurse, Linda kind of comes up with excuses. You can't see him now. He fell, blah, blah. She's making excuses. And then David hands her something. She's like, okay, you rest and get better. And she's walking and nurse Linda is following her. And it's like, okay. It's like, what note did he get? If it's something that concerns my patient's health, I need to know. And she shows her the note. It's like, because she was like, why do you need to know? And it shows her the note. It's like, David didn't tell me anything because it was gibberish, because obviously he was heavily medicated, so he couldn't tell her anything. But it's like, but you follow me? Tells me everything. I'm like, yo! And then she's in the elevator calling, so I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Kristen for being the MVP. And lo and behold, who she'll show up with? Good old Kurt. And Kurt's like, he looks at the charts, he's like, the fact of the matter is, he's like, if you don't want to lose your license, nurse, I would back up if I were you. I'm like, yes! Kurt. And the fact of the matter is, he's going over there. It's like, why is he being medicated like this? The doctor comes in and is like, oh, yeah, what's going on? I even love that Kurt pushes his weight around. He's like, oh, like, I play golf with people in the nursing board and stuff like that. So, but it's like, yeah, if you don't want a lawsuit, you better figure this whole thing out. But then, like, by the time they go ask Piper about Nurse Linda, it's blocked, but she's gone, and it's like, oh, maybe she went to her locker. Go in her locker, we see all those tags, including one from Harlan showing that she did in fact kill him. She's probably like an angel of death. It seems like she's not, because typically angels of death are more like, oh no, I'm gonna kill people who are suffering so they're not suffering anymore. No, she was just a straight up psychotic nurse that you couldn't even call her an angel of death. She was just straight up, I want to kill people, like, for whatever twisted reason. I was like, that could have easily been David, and it's like, oh my. So it begs the question, like, could she have been part of the 60? Could have been a situation, and that makes me wonder, was Ghana part of the 60? But could Linda have been part of the 60? Was she just a crazy, because like, once again, David said that of like, there, crazy looks a lot like possession, and possession looks a lot like, crazy. So it's like, it's hard to say, but luckily everything kind of worked out in that end. So it's like everything luckily resolved. I mean, granted, poor Harlan still ended up dying regardless. It was almost very foreshadowing, because even though David woke up and he was alive, it's like Linda ended up killing him anyway, so... Because he was one of the few people that probably knew what she was up to, so it's like, it was only a matter of time, and it's just, But like I said, I'm curious to circle back to that Father Douglas. It's probably a thing of like, I don't know, like, he'll probably pop up. Like I said, he was real because the note was left and everything, but like I said, it was most likely like David's subconscious working in overdrive and manifesting itself, like those creatures, and probably like seeing Harlan taken away was because Harlan was actually taken. It might be that thing of like you're drifting in and out, and like maybe even in your sleep you're hearing stuff that's influencing your dream type of situation, so it might have been that, but wild episode, dude. So much. And I'm so curious to see where this takes us going forward, David with this whole Ghana thing, but also the big thing about Judy. Like I said, I got to know more about this whole Judy thing. Like I said, I got the feeling like, Ben didn't want her necessarily around, but he kind of got over that. We'll see. Because even David was like, Judy, why are you here? Like, even in his to be fair, he wasn't lucid at the time, but even like in his mind, he was lucid, being like, Judy, what's going on? But obviously, he was just kind of like, drugged up and out of it, from the outside. So it's like, I'm interested to dive into that. Like I said, plus Kristen being like, oh, so I guess I wasn't your first psychologist. And like I said, because there was even that moment that was kind of interesting where like when they were discussing Ghana's situation, like, before they left Judy's place, it was interesting because they had this back and forth, and it was like, psychologist talk, yay. So it'll be interesting if she ends up working on the next case with them or not. Like I said, if she tries to muscle back in, and maybe even Krista starts feeling a little threatened, like, oh, this is supposed to be my thing. You guys are my friends, and now I'm kind of losing potentially this job because Judy might work. Oh, she works very well with you guys, and I don't know. Or maybe she's going to say some stuff that might scare Kristen away from the job. Might be stuff about explaining the specifics around why she left. Maybe it wasn't just David stuff, or maybe it was, or it could have just been like stuff related to the job that maybe Kristen has 100%, because it's like, Because it seems like Judy seems rationally enough behind to be like, oh, like, look at things from the very same perspective that Kristen does from a psychological standpoint. So it doesn't look like she's kind of got the same standpoint that David does. I mean, to be fair, Ben's the very, like, realist, too. So it doesn't seem like Judy's position on that's necessarily gotten shifted because of working with David and whatnot. But, you know, we'll see. I'm also curious because of this whole, because Linda was kind of like, oh, you don't want to get you addicted, which I'm like, well, we know that's kind of been an issue for David in the past. So I'm like, I'm wondering, is this going to have any influence on his, getting high to see visions and stuff? I'm wondering, is this going to influence or rather even affect it going forward? We'll ultimately have to wait and see. So many things I'm excited to see where all this ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.